Hi, in this presentation, I'll be discussing the impact of forced migration and displacement on vulnerable populations. I will be sharing perspectives from Nigeria, Portugal, and Norway. These are various contexts where I volunteered and worked with people who were affected by forced migration and internal displacement. What then is forced migration and internal displacement? Forced migration is a situation whereby people are forced to flee from their home countries as a result of armed conflicts, persecution, and natural disasters. In most cases, it often involves compulsion or coercion, and the people affected have to flee for safety and protection. In forced migration situations, the people affected often cross international borders. On the other hand, internal displacement also forces people to flee from their homes. However, they remain within the borders of their home country. Globally, forced migration has really affected people and has led to the displacement of about 53.2 million persons. In Nigeria, an estimated 2.7 million people were displaced in 2020. This was a dramatic and unprecedented increase because in 2005, the number of people displaced was 5,000. Let's look at the impact of forced migration on vulnerable populations in Nigeria. Studies have shown that older adults and women are the population most affected by forced migration in Nigeria. A report by Help Age International 2018 showed that up to 30% of those affected by forced migration and internal displacement are older adults in Nigeria. Most of the people affected by forced migration and internal displacement live in internal displacement camps. One of such camps is the new Kuchinguru IDP camp, which is located in Abuja, the capital city of Nigeria. In this camp, the major challenge of older adults is the disconnection and disruption in their support networks. This is because in Nigeria, older adults are primarily cared for by family members. As a result of forced migration and displacement situations, majority of them lost their family members. More so, the emergency housing structure in the camp does not encourage communal living. Thus, older adults in the camp were mostly isolated. Another major challenge is the fact that older adults in the camp are less prioritized by relief programs, who gave more attention to other vulnerable populations, such as children and pregnant women. Let's talk about my volunteer experience in the camp. I volunteered in the camp as a social worker, and in collaboration with other support workers, we ensured that children and older adults in the camp who were sick and needed attention received prompt medical attention, which was one of the major challenges facing the camp. We were also into contact tracing for family members of older adults and children who were lost while escaping the war and conflict zones. Most of the older adults in the camp were also battling with post-traumatic stress disorders as a result of the traumatizing effects of the conflict they experienced. We provided counseling sections for such people and connected them with necessary support services and agencies. Let's look at refugees and asylum seekers in Portugal. Portugal remains one of the countries in the EU that have received large number of asylum seekers and refugees. In 2021, Portugal received about 4,827 asylum seekers and refugees. Most of the refugees came from Afghanistan, Gambia, Pakistan, Morocco, Senegal, Angola, Russia, and Congo. Portugal is also one of the EU countries with best integration policies for refugees. One of the key agencies responsible for integration of refugees is Europe. Europe collaborates with other agencies in Portugal, such as Portuguese High Commission and Santa Casa. They provide refugees with access to education, language courses, housing, employment, citizenship application, and empowerment schemes. One interesting thing about Europe is the fact that majority of its key officials are refugees who have been integrated into Portuguese system. However, refugees are also faced with many challenges, which are difficulties in learning Portuguese language, validating their skill set, and securing decent jobs. I also volunteered as I also volunteered during my internship in Portugal. This was part of my master's program internship program, and I worked with Europe. My role with Europe was basically about facilitating integration programs for the refugees. This involved channeling the concerns and challenges of refugees to relevant agencies for support and assistance. Majority of the refugees had low educational qualification and needed assistance on how to write CVs for job applications. We conducted training sections for such people and assisted them with skills on CV writing and other useful job application tips. We also conducted routine needs assessment for refugees with special needs. Some of them were referred to special schools or special skill acquisition centers. Let's also look at unaccompanied refugee minors in Norway. In Norway, forced migration occasioned by conflict and wars have resulted in large number of unaccompanied refugee minors. These are children and adolescents aged below 15 who traveled from their home countries to Norway without any significant adult accompanying them. Most of the unaccompanied minors came from Afghanistan, Eritrea, Syria, and Somalia. For the unaccompanied minors who are granted resident permit, the Norwegian government, through the Welfare Administration Office, provide them with education, housing, support services, and care arrangements. Efforts are also made by the Welfare Office to reunite the minors with families and relatives from their home country who reside in Norway. The unaccompanied minors are also faced with many challenges. In recent times, most countries in the EU, including Norway, have implemented restrictive immigration policies with more harsh consequences for refugees and asylum seekers. This has resulted in low acceptance rates of unaccompanied minors, who in some cases are returned to their home countries. More so, some unaccompanied minors from Afghanistan are expected to return to their home countries when they turn 18. There was also high prevalence of traumatic stress disorder among unaccompanied minors as a result of chronic traumatic events they have been exposed to. In Norway, I also volunteered with an agency called NAV. NAV is Norwegian Labour and Welfare Administration Agency. It is the official agency responsible for the administration of welfare for refugees in Norway. I had my internship with the agency and was part of the team that facilitated language classes for the unaccompanied minors as part of the integration process. Due to the diverse and multicultural nature of the unaccompanied minors, our major task was to carry out thorough needs assessments and propose relevant interventions to the Welfare Office. We also coordinated empowerment sections where we made effort to assist the refugee minors to discover their skills and potentials. Let's also look at the sociological implications of forced migration and displacements. One of such implications is the fact that it brings people from different cultural backgrounds. It also brings about cultural exchange and adaptation. However, it also brings about tension and conflict in an attempt to coexist. So this can bring about cultural changes. It also brings about human rights concerns. Here, it brings about possible violation of rights to seek asylum. It can also bring about violation of rights to dignified life and violation of right to protection from discrimination. It also brings about social stratification. Here, it could reinforce social inequalities. It also brings about risk of exploitation of vulnerable population and possible abuse and discrimination. It also brings about economic challenges. Here, it brings about economic strain for the host country and competition for limited jobs. It also brings about change in political and social dynamics. In this case, it brings about political instability, social tensions, competing and conflicting interests, as well as resource scarcity. These are useful references and links that was used for the work.